Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. In the co-captain's chair, once again, Mr. Chris Allo.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, my friend, for joining me here today for a little review show. All right, I don't think
Thanks
I've
for having
really.
me.
I love having you, man. I love being able to talk to you not only about music, but I think we talk more about horror movies now than we even do music.
Oh, sure.
Surprisingly.
Absolutely.
So here on the Monsters Den, I don't really think I've ever done, as of yet, a kind of new release, kind of new review type of program. It's mostly, themes we've been doing and old classic stuff, new classic stuff, all that sort of thing. But I think I want to start, especially with you, because I know you buy a lot of the new release stuff. And,
sure.
And I've been doing that as well of late. So today we have a brand new Blu-ray release, which Chris has not seen yet, but I just got it. And I've been waiting for this one because I'm a huge Hammer horror film fan. Okay, Hammer Film Productions is one of my favorite kind of like classic film studios, and I love so many of their movies. So we're talking about Curse of Frankenstein, which just got released here in North America on Blu-ray, first time ever here. And this is a 2-disc special edition by Warner Brothers Archives, so the WB Archive Collection. And this is a brand new 4K restoration.
Yep.
So I'm sure you have the exact same DVD that I had for many, many years, the
Yeah.
one with the clamshell, right?
Yep. That's it.
That's
I have
all
it
that's
in my movie room.
And that was fine for what it was, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for how great this film looks on Blu-ray, and especially on my brand new 4K player that my kids just got me for Christmas. And it's really good. I mean, bright, crisp colors. So a little bit of history here. So this film came out in 1957. So in 1957, Hammer was still in its very infancy as far as doing like horror or sci-fi. They got their kind of, they had done some kind of like thrillers and some dramas early and going back to the late 40s, but it wasn't until the Quatermass experiment in 1955 that Hammer really started to make some waves. That was a big deal for them. Made a lot of money. That was more like a sci-fi film, but it had some horrific elements. And this was actually, though, their first true horror film. And this is based on the Mary Shelley book, right? Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, right? As it was also known as. And this, they had to wait a number of years to even attempt this because of Universal owning the rights to the Frankenstein, whatever you call it, when they buy the rights to actually create films based on literary characters, right? So by this time they were able to do that. However, the deal they made with Universal is they could not use the same
the Jack Pierce makeup. They could not copy it.
You could not copy it at all. They had to change certain elements of the plot or storyline from the Universal story, but it's still basically the same thing. You got young Victor Frankenstein,
right,
who's wanting to dabble in all this strange stuff and create his own man, his own creature. But here it's a little bit different. You don't have the hunchback, you don't have Fritz, you don't have the big castle and all that kind of stuff. This is very gothic, little more low key. Also Hammer's first color film,
which I was going to say, for people that don't remember, all the Universals were in black and white.
Yeah.
So here we are in the late 50s. This is the first big budget Frankenstein movie, literally in blood curdling color, where you could actually see the blood. So between that and all the women who, in all the Hammer movies, starting with this showing cleavage, this was way bloodier and way sexier than any of the Universal Monster series. I mean, this was definitely not your dad's Frankenstein movie. This was new and bold, and there was definitely some backlash, but because it was exciting and bloody and sexy, it was a massive hit.
Yeah.
And this gave Hammer, they built a whole horror empire, starting with this one movie.
Yeah. And they followed up pretty quickly. So this was a huge hit. Ironically enough, though, and I think I thought the same thing you did. They didn't really have a huge budget for this film. So if you watch the special features in this Blu-ray set, they have a couple of interviews with oh boy, I'll get you the names right now because it's worth talking about. So they're two guys who are really, Hammer historians. So we've got The Resurrection Men, Hammer, Frankenstein, The Rebirth of the Horror Film, which is a little documentary with Richard Clemenson. And he's like, has done the horror magazine called Little Shop of Horrors, and he's a Hammer historian. And then there's another documentary called Hideous Progeny, The Curse of Frankenstein in the English Gothic Tradition. And that's with historian Sir Christopher Frayling, who also is a Hammer, specialist, so to speak. And both of them talk about how they had to really cut a lot of corners in this film, surprisingly enough, because it looks like a big production, right?
Right.
I guess for Hammer it was, but they talk like specifically about, there are a couple of instances, and if we want to go compare it to the Universal film, how many extras were in the Universal films, like the townspeople and all that.
Right.
Every film's got a shitload of people, right?
Running with the torches, yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, they didn't have them for this. If you notice, there's a scene later on where the second lead character. So obviously it stars Peter Cushing as Victor Frankenstein.
Right.
Frankenstein, inherits his parents' mansion and all their wealth and all that. You've got Christopher Lee stars as the creature, doesn't utter a sound, but is really menacing. And then you've got Robert Urquhart, I believe his name is, and he plays Paul Krempy. So he's the mentor to young Victor Frankenstein, and he gets kind of tricked into doing all these experiments to help create this creature, and he's really against it all. But anyway, there's a scene later in the film where he's so disgusted about what's going on. He's like, I'm going to go get the authorities. I'm going to go into town. I'm going to tell them I'm going to bring everybody back here to go and kill this creature. And yet you never see anybody come to the house ever. Right. So it's basically, so you've had Elizabeth. So in this film, Elizabeth is his cousin, right? Whereas in the original Universal film, Elizabeth was his fiance, but there was no relation there. So here it was his like second cousin that, from birth, from when they were kids, this marriage was already kind of arranged for them. And of course, played by the lovely Hazel Court, who looks amazing in this film, right?
Gorgeous.
Yeah. But, really cool makeup on Christopher Lee, I thought, because he's really gross looking. Right. As opposed to Karloff, right? Who is, great. But that was more, I don't know, when you look at Karloff's Frankenstein and you look at Christopher Lee's Frankenstein, he really looks like a stitched up dead guy. Like the flesh looks rotting and falling off.
And I was going to say, Peter Cushing as Frankenstein, he's really like not a likable Dr. Frankenstein at all. I mean, there is no, he is a top heel in this thing. I mean, he is a right? Because isn't he gets his girlfriend pregnant and he has Frankenstein kill her.
The maid, yeah, he gets the maid pregnant. And then she was on the assumption that he was going to marry her. He's like, I'm not marrying you. You're just a maid. I'm marrying Elizabeth. And she's like, well, but I love you. If you don't marry me, I'm going to tell everybody in town about, and the police about what you're doing here. And he's like, yeah, you go do that. And then that night.
It'll make me disappear. So he's a much more sinister Dr. Frankenstein than the Universal series.
Well, as it turns out, I mean, they did many sequels. I mean, what were there? Six sequels?
5 or 6.
Yeah, something like that.
And my favorite is definitely the last one, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. That's my all-time favorite.
That is real. I just watched that recently. Yeah, that's good. I mean, this is probably my favorite just by default. But of all the sequels, that one's a great one. They're all fun though. They're all fun. The last one is really good. But what I was going to say is that Peter Cushing and his interpretation of Victor Frankenstein, he is the actual monster in all of these.
100%, right on the nose. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And all he cares about is doing what he's doing and creating these
experiment put together.
And he doesn't give a damn about nobody else.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting, without giving the ending away too much, but the way this film ends, you're kind of like, all right, that's that.
Right.
but then he's back.
It was a hit. Yeah.
He was a hit, and it spawned. So I think trying to let me get the so it's 6 sequels, right?
Yeah, I think so.
6 sequels, but more importantly, this like spawned the whole horror series for Hammer. So you had Dracula, or the Horror of Dracula, a year later.
And I was gonna say, right, they bring the 2 of them back next year for Dracula.
Yeah, for Dracula, and then you had the Mummy in '59.
Right, the Mummy, which I love. That's my favorite Mummy movie, and it's amazing too. So in a short amount of time, we had Christopher Lee as Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. Like, well, you couldn't do a Wolfman movie with him while you were at it?
Too tall, I think.
Probably. He probably wouldn't move as quick.
And quite frankly, I don't know if I want to mess with Oliver Reed, because Oliver Reed did a really good job, I think, as the werewolf.
True. Kristen Werewolf is awesome. And, me and my buddy Sean have mentioned it. Like, why do they only make one werewolf movie? They made a bunch of Frankensteins, a bunch of Mummy movies, and a ton of Dracula.
And the Dracula, even a couple Dr. Jekyll movies. I mean, missed opportunity, I think. Yeah,
and no crossovers. Like, why was there never a Dracula Frankenstein movie, or Dracula and the Wolfman, or whatever? If they were replicating the Universal series, well, Universal invented the shared universe thing back in the 40s. So
yeah, they could have, and they were cranking. Hammer was cranking out films left and right.
It's unbelievable.
All throughout the 60s and the early 70s. I mean, by the mid 70s, they had kind of run its course already. But you mean to tell me in those 15 years they couldn't have done a couple crossovers?
Yeah, it's weird that towards the end, when they were sort of running out of gas and they were coming up with all these ideas, they wanted to do a Loch Ness movie. They were going to do a Vampirella movie. All this stuff fell apart. It's like, guys, you had it. Just do a Dracula versus the werewolf movie. You had Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in everything.
Yeah.
You could have, I guess you probably wouldn't have had Peter Cushing play Van Helsing and Frankenstein, but they could have figured something out.
Yeah, they could have, and quite frankly, they had a whole cast of people who appeared in so many of these films. I mean, not only the women, but you had all these other, actors who appeared in multiple.
Ralph Bates was in a bunch. Yeah, there's so many of them.
Yeah. But this is quite good. So the quality of the picture is superb. The sound is great. I mean, the picture is so crystal clear, and it's an old film, obviously. So it's 1957. So you see a little grain here and there, but I mean, there's a scene around the middle of the film where they do a bunch of close-ups of Christopher Lee. And the makeup looks great, it looks just gross, whatever. But because the high definition is so crystal clear, you can actually see where his makeup ends on his neck, and it's just like the latex that he's wearing is just kind of like hanging here, and then you see like the regular skin underneath. And they probably back then they're like, nobody will ever see that. But now, well,
yeah, that's awesome.
But, and of course, all these Hammer films, the better the resolution is, the better the high definition picture is, the more you can tell the blood. And there's lots of it in this film. Looks like bright red paint, right? Or Caro syrup or whatever. It's just, but you know what? Who cares? It's fun.
Right. And again, in the Universal movies, it would be dark. It's black and white. So it's all, the little bit of blood you got was Hershey syrup or whatever they were using.
Yeah, and what little is correct, because you really didn't see much at all, ever. Someone would get shot, they just, and you'd see nothing. Yeah. I mean, Hammer, you saw the blood, always.
Yeah, they went for it.
Yeah. So here's what the discs look like. All right, so you got
if I'm not mistaken, I think I read that there's 3 different versions, right? There's 3 different aspect ratios.
Yeah, I only saw 2, but yeah.
Okay, maybe I read that wrong.
But it's good you have the option.
Yeah, one of the reviews I said they were like, this is the definitive horror movie release of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And they waited till the end of the year for it, but really good. You get all the bonus material on the second disc, which is really cool. And the 2 interviews that I watched, the 2 documentaries, are also in HD, because there's nothing more frustrating when you get one of these Blu-rays where the film looks fantastic and all the bonus features are like, you know, from 30 years ago, grainy, just blonde, like, oh man, this just looks spectacular. And this is all new stuff. All the bonus features are brand new for this specific release. So
nice. Yeah, I'll have to pick that up.
Yeah, it's this is it came just in time for Christmas, which is great. So I highly recommend it for those of you who are a fan, and add it to your Hammer Blu-ray collection, which there's so many of them that have come out over the last 2 years. I mean, so many of them. So cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I want to thank Chris Allo for tagging along here on this one and adding some color commentary to this little review show. So we will be seeing Chris once again on Tuesday next week. So that is January 5th, my birthday, actually.
Nice.
That's right. So a little birthday Monsters Den show for me. Rich Catino will be joining us as well. We're going to talk about some cool off the beaten path zombie films. So each of us have 3 picked out. We're going to stay away from the Romero films for this. So we might see a little Fulci. We might see a little Bob Clark. We'll see what happens. So that's all we'll give away right now. So stay tuned for that. And I hope everybody has a wonderful New Year's Eve, safe New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And I think the next time you see us here, it will be 2021. So take care, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Once again, for Chris Allo, I am Pete Pardo. Good night from the Monsters Den, everyone. Take care.